Hello, everybody. So, the last two classes, we've been learning about Rabbi Akiva. How each one of us has to learn from Rabbi Akiva's life. Went through a few amazing stories. How Rabbi Akiva, despite all odds, was optimistic and happy. And each one, he found the explanation why to be happy. So, we're going to learn today another story that seemingly everybody was sad and depressed, but still Rabbi Akiva didn't give up, and he was always happy. So now, the Rabbi explains something very interesting we see in Rabbi Akiva's life that we don't find in many rabbis' lives, especially in those stories. We're going to see also here, Rabbi Akiva was different than everybody else. What's the difference? Rabbi Akiva is what they call today not privileged. Everyone else around him was privileged, and he was not. His colleagues was the Jewish leader, the Nasi, the leader of all the Jewish people. This is from King David. Every single generation, there was a leader, child after child from King David. And one of the most famous ones was Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, but his grandfather and his great-grandfather was a whole lineage of many generations from Hillel that were the Jewish leaders. They were, so to speak, the king of the Jews. I mean, not the king, but they were the leader. They decided everything, physical and spiritual. So this is his colleague, Rabbi Gamliel. He was someone that grew up in the house of Rabbi Hillel, the famous Hillel. He had the greatest, one of the most greatest Jewish leaders as his grandfather. His father was a great Jewish sage. He was a great Jewish sage. He grew up as a child, he grew up in the study hall with so many other sages, right? Then there's Rabbi Tarfon, and there's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. These are people as the high priest. Every single for 10 generations, high priest in the temple. Went into the Holy of Holies. What's the greater experience than that, right? And then there's every single one of his friends had the crazy lineage. Rabbi Akiva was a shepherd. Till he was 40 years old, he was a shepherd. His father was a convert. He didn't know how to read Hebrew, nothing. His wife inspired him to go learn with children aleph beis when he was 40 years old. So the Rabbi explains that this is the reason why Rabbi Akiva had the special talent of never getting sad, always seeing the potential, the good that's going to come out, because his own life was sad. His own life was sort of depressing. I'm not sure if it was depressing, but it wasn't happening. There was no great godly revelations going on when he was with the sheep. He never experienced, never had a rabbi, nothing. Actually, it says almost negative things about him, not in a bad way, but when he was a shepherd, he made some mistakes because he didn't know, right? He sort of almost didn't like the rabbis. He hated religious Jews when he was a shepherd. He didn't know. But then as soon as he saw the light, as soon as when he realized that there's something there that he has to get, he went for it all the way. Like I said, the story with the rock, that he saw eventually, after a lot of hard work, you can make a hole in a rock, right? So, what does this mean? This means that he didn't look, okay, what's going on right now? He looked, what could come from here? Where could we go from here? Now, by the way, sometimes you have to look at where you are. If you're standing in shul, you don't look outside of the window. You look in shul, right? If your father is amazing sage, you should learn from your father. You should learn from your mother. You don't need to always look outside. But sometimes there's nothing. You're stuck. You're in a situation. There's nowhere to look. Then you have to break out of the shell. Then you have to look further. And that is where Rabbi Akiva's talent is. Rabbi Akiva didn't know, he had to, he was forced to, in order for him to grow, he was forced to look further, to look out of the box. Okay, so now we're going to learn a story how Rabbi Akiva, his colleague, was sick, and they went to visit him. Now, unfortunately, it's very applicable to these days when so many people are sick, and there's two reasons, two stories how Rabbi Akiva was happy even though his friends or maybe even teacher was sick. So, I'll read inside. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, a big sage, said like this. Kishachala Rabbi Eliezer. When Rabbi Eliezer was sick, Nichnusu Talmidav Levakar. His students came in to visit him. Amar Lahen. Rabbi Eliezer said, Chama Aza Yish Ba'olam. The literal meaning of Chama Aza means it's a very strong sun in the world. It means it's very hot. But the Rashi explains it means Hashem is being very strict. So they heard that Hashem is being very strict. Like, anybody around now, you see during Corona, Hashem is being very strict, right? Unfortunately, Like we know, Leibush, our fellow congregant, is in the hospital. Sometimes Hashem looks like he's being, a strict principal. So this Rabbi, their teacher said this. All the students that are crying is just like the story we learned last week about Rabbi Akiva in the temple. Same story, same words almost. They started crying. Rabbi Akiva, what was Rabbi Akiva doing? Mesachek. He was laughing. Amrulai. Now imagine you're sitting in a hospital. Everyone's crying, and especially this is the greatest stage, and he's telling them the guy is being strict, and they're crying for a good reason. And Rabbi Akiva is laughing. Why are you laughing? Almost how dare you laugh? I'm not sure if they spoke like that to Rabbi Akiva. They for sure knew he had a deeper meaning, but they were puzzled. Why are you laughing? Amr Lahen, he told them, same story like last time. When he looked at them, he's like, why are you guys crying? So Amr Lahen, Efshir Sefer Torah Shari Batzar. Is it possible that the Sefer Torah, they called their teacher the Sefer Torah, because he knew the whole Torah and he lived the Torah. He was a living Torah. He's sitting in pain. We're not going to cry. They felt their rabbi's pain. How could we not be in pain with our rabbi, with our leader? Amr Lahen, Rabbi Akiva answered, Lekach ani mesachek. That's why I'm laughing. Kozman shani ro'eh Rebbe. He says, anytime I see a teacher, a great leader, she'ein yeni machmitz, his wine does not become vinegar. Ve'im pishteni le'ika, his flocks does not become hit. And this is all phrases from the olden days when their business was, it's not like these days when it's real estate and airplanes. In the olden days it was wine, pishta means flax, it's like silk, oil, honey, all these different types of foods. He says, someone that his wine never becomes vinegar. It's like in the olden days, it's like a slang for success. His wine never turns into vinegar. I mean, when was the last time your wine turned into vinegar? But in the olden days, it was the thing. Or his oil never becomes spoiled. His honey never becomes whatever, too bad. So he says, if I see a rabbi like that, if I see that, I'm scared. Amarti, I said, Chas v'shalom, God forbid, Kibul Rabbi Yomei. Everybody gets merit for a mitzvah. You do a mitzvah, it's impossible. Hashem's not going to pay you back. The question is how. So wicked people, or people that unfortunately maybe, some people, Hashem gives them all their profit in this world. Now, it's a joke. The enjoyment of this world compared to the world to come is nothing. It says you could be, the Tzemach Tzedek says, this is just an example. He said you could live for 1,000 years, be a king of the whole world, have any enjoyment you'll ever want, and it doesn't even get to an hour of heaven, right? You're never gonna get the drop of. So getting something now for a mitzvah is a waste. It's a waste of profit, right? Like we said in the class about Rabbi Hanina ben Daisa. He didn't have any money, literally no money. So God gave him I'm not sure how to say it, but in the olden days he had tables that had 3 legs. So there's a name for the leg, but he gave him a golden leg. So he gave him a golden leg. So what happened was his wife had a dream, and what was the dream? The angel told her, "Oh, that leg from the chair, the golden leg that God gave your husband, it's from his table in the world to come." So they were going crazy. Like he went back to God, "Take back your leg. I don't need it." Right? So, and God took it. So this is the point is that there's no question that to have profit in this world from a mitzvah is not worth it. It does. So Rabbi Akiva was scared about his teacher. He's like, how is it possible that he's having such a good life? Oh my gosh, he might be getting benefit from the mitzvahs. So now that I see that he's sick, I'm excited. I know, no, his profit is in the world to come. That's when he's going to get his profit. And that profit is going to be good profit. So this is the first example that we see. This first example we see, our Rabbi Akiva didn't get sad when there was tragedy. He saw the benefit. And what did it, so as Rabbi said, 1 second. He said, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Lezer told Rabbi Akiva, did I do anything wrong? How could I even have pain? So Rabbi Akiva says, you told us, Rabbi, There's not a human being that doesn't make a mistake. So unfortunately, some people, when you tell them to do something wrong, they start right away saying no, this excuse, that excuse. This is not, you don't need to be embarrassed, right? It says in today's Rambam that the worst thing that stops someone from growing is he doesn't know how to take criticism. Says why? Because every problem you have, the worst problem. If somebody tells you you're doing something wrong, then you're gonna fix yourself. But if you don't listen to criticism, you're never gonna grow, because you're never gonna learn how to grow. So we're gonna move on to the next story, which is a bit more powerful. It's the same. Maybe it's the same rabbi, but maybe it was a different time that he was sick. It says Tana Rabbana. Kishachala Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was sick. Nichlasu Arbas Canaan. 4 Zakanim went to Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Shua, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. So 4 big rabbis go to visit another big rabbi. Right? So now Rabbi Tarfon says, we need you. We can't have you sick. You are to the Jews like rain. Just like rain benefits everybody. I mean, not in Florida, but if you had a field, it would benefit you. So too, Rabbi, you are benefiting the Jews in this world and the world to come, because you're teaching everyone Torah. You're maybe also helping the Jews physically, and also you're helping the Jews to do Torah mitzvahs to get the world to come. That was one rabbi. Rabbi Yeshua says, you're better than the sun. The sun that also benefits the world, but you benefit the world in Elam Hazeh and Elam Haba. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah said, you're better than a father. A father, he makes the child, he supports the child, but only in this world. You're helping in this world and the world to come. So they're all complaining. How could we be missing this person? Right? What does Rabbi Akiva say? No. How precious is pain? Chaviv in Yisurim. Right? So just like in last story, suffering, right? Just like in last story, he said, wow, when he saw pain, he said, wow, you are going to have an amazing heaven. That's what he saw. As soon as he saw pain, he's like, oh my God, Hashem is not giving you your reward in this world, you're having it in the next world. So too, in this case, he sees pain, he says, how precious is pain? So what happened? No one even doubted him this time. Right away, Amr Lahem, Rabbi Eliezer, which was a big sage, he said, Simchuni, pick me up. He was laying because he was sick. Pick me up a little bit. Ve'eshma divrei Akiva talmidai. And I'll listen to the words of Rabbi Akiva, my student. As soon as he said, all the other people said all these things, how amazing he was laying in bed. He heard Rabbi Akiva said, how precious is pain, how precious is suffering. He right away, he was his teacher. Let me hear what my student has to say. He's saying something. So he says, why are you saying how precious is pain? He says it's a pasuk in the Torah. It says, Menashe, he was the longest king in Judah. Menashe was the son of Chizkiah. It's a fascinating story. Maybe I don't know if we have time right now, but Chizkiah actually was the most righteous king ever, besides maybe King David. In a certain sense, he was the most righteous king, and he was a prophet. And he saw his kids would be sinners, so he's like, you know what? I'm not having any kids. What happened was he almost died. So the prophet Yeshayahu, he came to visit him. And he said, you're going to die because you didn't get married. And God said, the first mitzvah on Torah is to get married. So he said, so you know what? So he said, he turned to Hashem, like, Hashem, I know when you decree a bad decree, you can change your mind. He's promised he's going to get married. Heal me. And he was healed. They had a very big sickness, he was healed. And he actually married that prophet's daughter. But before he gave in, so to speak, to get married, he asked the prophet Yeshayahu, one of the most famous prophets. He said, "1 second, you want me to have bad kids?" He's like, "That's none of your business. Hashem said you do a mitzvah. You don't think about these things. It's none of your business." He says, "In Hashem's business, don't stick to your nose." He said, "Like don't mix into Hashem's business. You get married, and Hashem will do His thing." And what happened was actually, his kids were horrible. The worst people, the worst king ever in the Jewish history is his son, right? But after 22 years of literally, he was forcing Jews to survive. He would kill them if they wouldn't survive. He brought in the temple an idol, right? After 22 years, there was a king nearby, took over when he invaded Israel and captured him. And when he was in jail and he had all the suffering, he never had a day of suffering. He was a child of a king. He had anything he wanted. He started suffering, was in a jail cell. He started thinking out of the box a little bit. He started realizing, oh, I'm not doing everything so correctly. He killed his grandfather, actually. His grandfather, which was this famous prophet, Yeshayahu, he lived to 120. Don't worry. But he killed him because he was telling him, you can't survive us. So he killed him. So now, what happened? He not only he became better, he did tshuva. Hashem brought him back to Israel. Not only he came back to Israel, and not only. Not only he came back to Israel, all the Jews also repented with him, and it was a big awakening in the Jewish nation, because this bad guy never sat in the jail cell to think. That's the real purpose of jail. Like the Rabbi says, jail isn't to punishment. Jail is for the criminal to sit in a room by himself, without any temptations, without any enemies. Sit there. That's what it's meant to be, right? And he's meant to just reflect on his past, and make good decisions. So this king, from having this pain and in this chain sitting in the cell, he changed the whole Jewish nation. From the day before, when he was forcing people to serve idols, the next situation, he's inspiring everybody to become good Jews. And it actually was a longer time period as a righteous king than a wicked king. So Rabbi Akiva looks, so of course his teacher was nothing like this guy. But he says, look what pain can do. Pain can make someone's life totally turn around. So of course, even though his teacher Rabbi Eliezer was a great sage, a great tzaddik, but every person could grow.
Sometimes the body is talking rush, very hard, it's very good.
Right. So we see two more stories of Rabbi Akiva. We learned Rabbi Akiva when they were killing him, he was happy, right? But that was a different. But we see Rabbi Akiva, there was not one second in his life that he's like, okay, this situation is not going to happen. He was never fazed. He always, right away, without hesitation, saw the potential, the good in the bad. He didn't even see the bad, right? So the lesson is for us today. We're in the 9 days. It's sort of the days of mourning. Why did Hashem do this? Why did Hashem put us in the situation that we are in today, especially with all the sickness? We have no idea. We don't even have a reason for it. In the times of the temple, we had the prophets telling us, this is for this is for that. Now we don't know. We're sort of in the dark. So it says that Moses, when he saw our generation, the heel of Mashiach, it's called the whole Jewish nation of all the generations is the body. So Moses' generation is the head. We're the heel. So why are we the heel? Because the heel is there's no feeling, there's no intellect, there's no emotions, right? So we're in a time that we're sort of empty. We have no intellect, we have no feeling. But it says in Moses, when he saw our generation, it says he was embarrassed. It says he was unav. Why was he unav? Why was he humble? Because he saw our generation and he was like embarrassed. Now between me and you, we're nothing like Moses. Why? He was the first one to not be embarrassed from us. He was always connected to God. He always spoke to God. He split the sea. What could be wrong about Moshe Rabbeinu? But at the same time, he was embarrassed from us, and explains why. Because Moshe wasn't able to have the concept of commitment, of stubbornness. Moshe, he loved doing a mitzvah. He saw when he put the mitzvah what's happening. He saw the godly light coming down when he put on the tefillin. He saw when he's living tzedakah the godly light. We don't see these things, so we're doing it not out of we're not drawn to it. We force ourselves. We're doing it out of commitment, out of sort of stubbornness, good stubbornness. So this is the reason why God made Galus. This is the reason why He put us in this dark situation, because He wants us to show this commitment to Him. And that is the reason why Mashiach is going to come, specifically from our work that we're serving Hashem now. Not the work of 1,000 years ago, not even 100 years ago. Because in this generation, when we're the most sort of cold and the most unconnected to God, and we're still to learn Torah and we still do mitzvahs, that ambition and that sort of stubbornness is actually what brings Mashiach. And that's why Rabbi Kiva was so happy when he saw the destruction. Because he saw in the destruction that this destruction will bring to Mashiach. And same too, we have to look up, we can't be sad at our situation. We have to know that our situation today is today, our mincha and our davening and our learning and everything we do right and hold ourselves back from doing wrong, that is what's going to bring Mashiach. And we can't be down for a second. We have to know this is what's going to do it. Everyone have a great day.